Good afternoon, I am Pete, or over on Twitter, known as Risk for Rewards. And today we are going to talk about the Curragh. But firstly, I just want to say a thank you to everyone who is following or subscribing on YouTube and for everyone who's been liking the videos. It's not been long that I've been on YouTube, probably I think about 15, 16 months. I think I set it up before Cheltenham, the year before last. And that has been successful. It's a good way of communicating and getting all my information across and content for the summer season. A few people have asked, like, why are you away from the website at the moment? The website's being rebuilt, lots of things going on, and they'll all be back ready for the jumps. But for now, all content will be free on YouTube or on Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter, it's at Risk for Rewards. And if you're looking to follow me, then it's appreciated if you just click subscribe below. So 2,000 followers now on YouTube, if that's what it's called. Much appreciated. Anyway, onto the racing. So Royal Ascot, brilliant last week. Really, really good. I think there was plenty of negativity off the back of Cheltenham. I mean, I always love Cheltenham, so I never have any negativity anyway. But for maybe the people who were not so much the purists, but people who aren't just about the betting and their love for the sport, they want the competition between horses. And it wasn't quite there this year for whatever reason. We had quite a few no-shows, but Royal Ascot was brilliant this year. The competition was so strong. The shortest price favourite of the week was Kyprios, I believe, at 11 to 10. There were horses, a lot of horses that were, say, 6 to 4 in the morning. They drifted to 5 to 2, some out to 4 to 1. There were all sorts of prices available. It was so hard to judge whether you should be taking a price straight after decks, take the price the night before, take the price in the morning. Like what some horses, like say Hand of God on the Saturday was, in the morning he was about 15 to 8, and the night before the same. 10 a.m. when they went best odds guaranteed, he went to 5 to 2. 11 a.m. he's 4 to 1, and then he sent off, I don't know, 15 to 8 or 2 to 1 and winning. So it's very hard to gauge, but it was just a brilliant week of racing. So many good, obviously I'm not here to tell you all the good story side of things, because as much as I love that side of things, I'm about the racing, the betting, the enjoyment. Didn't go to Royal Ascot last week myself, but from what I hear, I've heard plenty of positive things, and there are lots to take out of it. This season is looking very, very good on the flat, which is big for me, because for anyone who is new to follow me, is that I do target just the big racing. I've got very little interest, more so on the flat because there are some big meetings during the week, but generally most of the racing that I'm looking at is on the weekend. So currently I'm just going to give a brief, all my thoughts for the weekend on stuff like the Curragh. A lot of the big tipsters, whether it's podcasts, YouTubes, platforms, and they're there to try and pick decent prices, big winners and stuff like that. But a lot of the bigger races, especially if they're on a Sunday, they don't get looked at as much, whereas they're the racing that I love. It's a bit like, to me, it's a bit like talking about the Premier League and then going, oh, Man City are playing, I don't know, Chelsea. Man City are 1 to 6. We won't talk about them because it's obvious that they'll win, and just skipping over it. Whereas that's the good stuff, in my opinion. So I'm going to give you a bit of a talk about the Curragh on Saturday, Curragh on Sunday, a few from Newmarket. There will be my final selections that I've backed. These are all just horses that I backed myself. They'll be up this evening. But I'll give you everything that I've backed so far right now, and we're going to have a quick run through of a few to look out for over the weekend. So straight into it. Obviously, just before I start, next weekend, Coral Eclipse. Hopefully, City of Troy redemption. I say redemption, obviously he's done it in the Derby. I'm debating whether to go or not, but obviously I was the jinx. I drove 6 hours round trip to go see him in the 2,000 guineas, watched him, did a 3 furlong workout, and then come home, trot home, and then didn't go to see the Derby, and he bolted up. So maybe I don't go. It's looking like a very small field, which I think was fairly obvious from a long way out. Could even be as small as 3 or 4 runners at this rate. I think Dancing Gemini is rumoured to definitely be going. City of Troy will be going. A pacemaker will be going. And it'll be interesting to see if White Birch takes his chance or not. There's been very little on other than the Bloods mentioning. We know they doesn't really want fast ground. But the other issue for obviously White Birch against City of Troy is that he'd have to give him a significant amount of weight. I think it's something like, I think the weight for age is something like £10. And bearing in mind, off the top of my head, I think they both ran to a 125 RPR last time. So basically, White Birch would, if he runs to his Derby run again, White Birch would need to improve £10 on his last run that we saw, which was a career best from him. So it just shows you the task that you'd be facing. So it's whether they'd want to roll the dice. As well with White Birch, he's ran 3 times already, obviously achieving a career best when beating August Rodin, who's franked the form since. So do they really need to roll the dice so soon when the Arc apparently is the main target? So he's going for an autumn prep. A lot of horses may only have 3 or 4 runs before the Arc itself, and we're already in June. So, and if his preference is for soft ground, maybe they give him a break. I don't know, because I'm just speculating, because I've got no idea. We haven't heard anything. But Pasture's not going. We've heard nothing from Economics, who was supposed to be going to Ascot. So I've got no idea. And you look down through the thing, and the other horses are horses like Luxembourg and August Rodin, and they're all in his own stable. They're not going to send anyone over to take him on unless it's a pacemaker. So hopefully City of Troy will be a collect for everyone who's took the prices, whether it was evens, 7-4, 2-1, 8-1, whatever it was. Hopefully we see a show, and then we move on, and then he starts taking on the big races, looking like potentially the Ascot, the Irish Champion Stakes, or he goes to York for the Juddmonte. If he goes to the Juddmonte, that will be a very, very good race, hopefully. And that'll be one where we're talking about not a small field, no gimmies there. And then obviously back end of the year, fingers crossed still for the Breeders' Cup Classic slips. But anyway, I digress. Too excited about one horse. Right, anyway, let's get back to this weekend. So talking about excitable horses, one to look out for tomorrow, Saturday, 2:55 the Curragh in the Al Bassi Dubai International Stakes. This is a Group 3. There's a horse that's going to be, it's going to be obvious to everyone. But this is why I like to point things out, because this isn't going to be covered in someone's column if they're tipping for big price winners. But it is a horse that you want to have your eyes on for future targets, and that's Jean Bruegel. Last time out, sectionals, times, everything added up to a very strong performance. He beat the 87 rated Ozark Days, who was a 2-1 favourite on the day and had plenty of race experience, having already had 4 runs previously. Well, 3 runs, and obviously that was his 4th. But he absolutely hammered him. He looked like a veteran. He looked like he'd been doing it for a long time, and he beat him very easily over 8 lengths. It's interesting that they decided to skip Ascot and go here instead, go for a quieter step up into the Group 3, because obviously Aidan could have, but then again, when you look at the ammunition that he had last week, maybe he didn't need to send him. So yeah, they brought him here instead. It is a good field. It's not like, as in, again, talking about gimmies, this is a Group 3. Last time out, I believe, was just a maiden. Yeah, it was just a maiden over 10 furlongs here at the Curragh. So same track, same trip, but he's stepping into Group 3 territory. Of the opposition, you've got Trust Your Instinct for Joseph O'Brien, who was impressive last time out. Recorded an RPR just £1 lower than Jan Bruegel's. That was his, well, he's had plenty of starts. He's had a total of 8 runs. 4 on the flat, 3 wins. So he's interesting, but I had a quick flick through his form, and the horses that he was beating aren't no great shakes. Exactly the same as Jan Bruegel. I looked through all his form, and none of them have really franked the form since either. So neither of them are fantastic. The big thing, though, the difference, as I've just said, 103 for Jan Bruegel, 102 RPR. RPRs aren't the be-all and end-all, but it's just an easy way of me explaining context-wise of roughly what the horse has achieved if the form behind isn't much. But the big sway of it is the fact that Jean Bruegel carries 8.11, Trust Your Instinct carries 9.9, so that means that horse is having to give him £12. So in effect, if they ran the same race, then he'd have to improve, Trust Your Instinct would have to improve £13 to stay level with Jean Bruegel. So for me, that's a big ask. I know it's not run on ratings, but it's not like the horse is completely unexposed and only had 1 start. He's had 4 starts on flat, 8 starts total. So that would rule him out for me. On to Bolster. Bolster is the one that's very interested in this race, and I'm slightly surprised why he's not the shorter one of the remainder. Moved from Simon Ed Crisford to Carl Burke, looked promising on debut, ran moderately at Ascot, running to about 99, was a handicapper, but since handicapping for Carl Burke, he's improved £10-12, so 99, he's now rated 106. He's only improved £7 on the ratings, but his RPRs, he's improved nearly £15 in 2 runs. So he's definitely the one to keep the eye on. But again, he has to give £13 to Jean Bruegel. Difference is his numbers that he's running, 109, 112, they are at least £10 higher than what Jean Bruegel ran to. So Jean Bruegel is going to have to run to at least the level again, maybe more, to make sure he stays ahead of Bolster. Wendler runs off the same as Jean Bruegel, 8.11, because of the fact that she is also a 3-year-old. She looked very promising when she beat a half-decent field in a maiden back in March. Her form behind Azealia last year obviously looked strong in the Oaks, but at the same time you can't, like Azealia clearly is an improver, so it's not like you can mark it all on that form. She was slightly disappointed when she ran in the Priory Bell Stakes, but bounced back and won when beating Buttons last time. The issue is for her is like her running, like she's again talking about exposed horses. She's had 5 runs, of which she's had 1 victory. She's running against the boys in here, and the issue for her is she's her career best 2 would be 93 and 95. Both of those are below Jan Bruegel, and he's only had 1 start, so he's thoroughly unexposed. So for me, in simple, like I could go through the others, but it's hard to see them figuring here, with them carrying the weight as well. So for me, it does look not a 2-horse race, but the danger for me would be Bolster by mile, and it'd be no surprise if he's took on the sexy, because Ian O'Brien's the sexy unexposed horse, and he gets the better of him. But I've got a feeling that this Jan Bruegel could be pretty useful. He opened up at 13 to 8. It's currently around 5 to 4 with a few of the bookmakers. I think that will probably end up fair, but it's not to say that you won't wake up tomorrow and he'll be 6 to 4. But I could also see him waking up tomorrow and he's odds on just because of the weight allowance. But yeah, I think this could be one of their decent ones going forward. So sticking with the Curragh, we'll go to the Pretty Polly Stakes. 10 furlongs, 3:30 at the Curragh. This is the Group 1, the big race of the day. But if you're following a lot of people from over on the UK, this won't be the big race of the day because it's over in Ireland. But it is the big race of the day. And this is a race with depth. But it's strange. It's a race with depth of exposed horses. So the problem with fillies and mares is if you catch them on the day, then not they could be anything, but they can really, really impress. They can run big numbers, they can do big things, but then you catch them on another day and they just don't perform to the same level. So I'm going to start with the outside in. So Maxus is 25 to 1. Maxus has finished a neck behind White Birch this year on heavy ground before being well beaten 9 lengths on soft ground. So whilst obviously the last time out that was disappointing, he still isn't far behind top level class if you can get that close to White Birch. And White Birch had that was White Birch's first run, but still he's of interest. Content is a massive price, and I'll say that is, like if you said to me, oh, you've got to have a big each way price in this race, it would be Content for me, because at the moment she's not had a chance to show anything. Ever since November last year, Santa Anita, firm ground, she was rattling home off staying on from out the back. She didn't get a clear run. Brian Moore even said himself that she would have got up if he'd got her going sooner, and that's beating horses like Porta Fortuna, who obviously came second in that race. She finished 4th, and since then I just think they've been working on getting her fit. She went to the French, I think it was the French Guineas. Went to the French Guinea, yeah, it was the Pouliche. She ran to the French Guineas. She was all over the place. She was too keen. Went to Ascot last week. Wasn't really put in the race, but stayed on well, beaten just over 6 lengths. I just think this race could be run to suit. If they go a fast pace out in front, she hangs around at the back, no one's going to expect anything of her, and I think she'll be staying on well. If you're looking for one at a big price to get in the places, it might be a big ask at this stage for her to beat them all. But at the same time, she's getting £12 from the field. So it's not out of the question, but at the same time, the other side of that is the record of horses, there's only been one in the last 1 in the last 7 has been a 3-year-old, so basically getting the weight from their elders and had the experience to win. So I think she could be a big one at the places. Lumiere Rock for Joseph O'Brien, I just feel it's been a little bit disappointing since coming back and getting beat 3 lengths by Innsbruck. But again, it's Joseph's horses. A lot of them bounce back for the run. It's hard for me to actually turn around and say none of these don't have a chance. Tasmania's interesting for Mark Prescott, but the real 3 away from Content, the real 3 of focus for me are the front 3. So firstly, I'll start with Stay Alert. Stay Alert, I think, will be a danger to all in this race because she's priced about 6 to 1. Last year, she was completely forgotten about in the market. She was a 25 to 1 shot, and she was denied a clear run. She struggled to get around the field, and Via Sestina beat her. Via Sestina was on top form that day, and she arguably was unlucky. I don't think she would have beat Via Sestina, but it was a big run. 114 RPR, and the sort of running that you'd need to win a race like this. She was unlucky, and that was off the back of a moderate run at York. Whereas this time, the last time we'd seen her, she beat Running Lion pretty comprehensively. Running Lion pretty much ran out of gas, went off too soon at Newmarket, hit the dip, traded really short in running and then got caught close home. But if you looked at the jockey language from David Egan, he didn't look like he was ever in concern that he wasn't going to pick Running Lion up. The reason this is important is because obviously Running Lion won the mares race last week at Royal Ascot, so that form has been franked. So not only is the form been franked recently, but Stay Alert, we know, enjoys the Curragh, enjoys this race because obviously ran in it last week, and you could see her going close against a wobbly front end. Emily Upjohn, I just do not know. You're guessing at the end of the day. For me now, when I look through this, she's starting to look really, really disappointing. I mean, John Gosden's horses, John Gosden's fillies and mares have been disappointing so far. Like all of his young horses in the equivalent of the Oaks trial, can't remember what it's called, at Royal Ascot, they were all very average. But Emily Upjohn and who's his other big sable star? Inspiral. Obviously, Inspiral didn't improve at all. And what was remarkable is they changed tack. They decided to go for the trip. They changed a few things. When in reality, he was saying that they're just a bit far behind. And that's my worry with Emily Upjohn here, is the fact that originally it was they're just a bit behind. They'll come on for the run. The race didn't run to suit. And that was obvious. Like in the Coronation Stakes, she was sent off a 7-4 favourite. But it was never going to be run to suit. Luxembourg was always going to dictate the pace with Ryan Moore. And he went off hard, then slowed it up, then he kicked from the front, and she had no chance. But the thing that was disappointing was the fact that, yeah, okay, she went up there and tried to take him on, so maybe she sacrificed her chance, but she was still beaten over 10 lengths in that race. But taking that aside, you think, okay, but if you're John Gosden, you say, right, well, she'll come on for the run, she'll move on for that, and she'll get better. Well, then in that case, there's no problem. Next race, let's go 12 furlongs, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, but hang on a minute, why have you changed? Why has she gone back to 10 furlongs? So for whatever reason, they've decided let's go back to 10 furlongs. The headgear remains on, and she's taking a trip to the Curragh. I mean, not to say that 10 furlongs is any issue anyway, because she finished second to Paddington last year, one of her career best runs over 10 furlongs. So the trip won't be an issue. The concern for me is that you're completely guessing on how she's going to run. Like, okay, they could come on absolutely massive for that first run, but you look back through and each time we're making an excuse from her. Her last run, she was electric at Epsom in the Coronation Stakes, then finished second to Paddington, which are two brilliant runs. But after that, I mean, 27 lengths beaten by Hookham at Ascot. Then in Maidan, she finished 3.5 lengths behind Rebel's Romance, and then she was beaten out of sight by Luxembourg. So I just think she's starting to look disappointing. Could she bounce back and win this? Of course she could. Absolutely she could. But she's not a horse that I can trust. And she's easily dismissed for obviously under Kieran Schumacher as well. So he's still got to make a name for himself. This could be his weekend, but we've been saying that for the last 6 weeks. So speaking of hard to trust, we go to Blue Stocking. So Blue Stocking is currently trading about a 7-4 price. If you knew that Blue Stocking was 100% going to run to the race that she ran last time out, she'd be an absolute rick and a good thing. The concern with Blue Stocking is last year, for whatever reason, she just had tendencies to not win the races that she should have. There was a couple of occasions where you just like, don't get me wrong, some of the races, like she was beaten at Newbury by Warm Heart, which at the time everyone said, oh, you should have won that. But obviously Warm Heart and Save the Last Dance, who she knocked heads with all season, turned out to be incredibly good horses for Aidan O'Brien. But when she was beaten at Chester by Al Kareem, a neck, and then she was obviously best of the rest and beaten a neck by Poptronic when she made hard work of it, everyone questioned her attitude, which is why she was sent off 5-2 in a fairly moderate affair at York in the Middleton Stakes. Free Win was sent off favourite that day. It was a poor race. Like, there's no getting away from Infinite Cosmos, Sapphire Seas. These aren't like world beaters. Rated 104. Free Win's a good horse, rated 114. But again, going back to the John Gosden factor, maybe the horse wasn't ready on the day. But the big thing for her was she travelled really well into the race, like she has done many times, but she put it to bed in strides and she powered away at the line. And that to me said it was a horse where she'd grown with age. Maybe she's just switched on and decided, do you know what, I'm going to stop messing around and then this is it. It was only her second time in cheap pieces, so maybe the pieces obviously helped her first time and now she's really come alive for them. And so she is 100% the one to beat. If Emily Upjohn runs to her best, then nothing in here will beat her. But at the same time, you're questioning big time, will she run to her best? So for me, if you want the wildfire, the big roll the dice shot, it would be Content. If you want the each way play, it would be Stay Alert. But if you want the win play, it would be Blue Stocking. But for me personally, it'll be Blue Stocking. It'll be my bet, 13 to 8, 7 to 4. But I'll have a small saver on Stay Alert. So for anyone who doesn't understand that, say Stay Alert is about 6 to 1. That would mean that if I had £6 on Blue Stocking, I'd have £1 on Stay Alert. Just means if Stay Alert wins, I get my money back. If Blue Stocking wins, then obviously I just reduce £1 off that profit. And if they both lost, then obviously I've lost £7 in effect rather than 6. But that's my way of playing it. Obviously, if you just said I just want one bet, it would be Blue Stocking. I'm just going to put my trust and my faith in that she can put that together. Because another massive pointer when I was looking back through her form this morning was how well she ran here at the Curragh last season. It was over 2 furlongs further, but she looked like she had the race won and in the bag, and she got collared late home by Save the Last Dance. It was like a monsoon that day, and it was crazy that she got caught. I just think she's got same conditions, so it's going to be on good, probably likely good ground again. 10 furlongs again. They've changed nothing. We know she handles the Curragh, and I just think that we should be able to see a better horse today. And she'd be one of the stronger bets of the day for me, Blue Stocking. Right, so that is the Curragh. I can't go any more onto the Curragh on Saturday because we've still not got many prices. Everything's slowly being priced up. This is why, as I was saying, if you're not following, if you go over to my Twitter, come tonight, I'll put the rest of them up. But I'm just putting these out there for anyone who wants to watch. It's just allowing me to explain. People were asking, like, as in charging, non-charging. The difference between charging and non-charging is the fact that I'm just delivering the information as quick as possible and putting shortlists on Twitter. The thing that takes the time isn't because I'm some sort of elite special tipster that I claim to be. It's how much writing and how much content I have to put for the stats, the trainers. I do all the homework still myself. I look through all that for the selections. I just don't record it and spend hours and hours trying to process it to then deliver to people on a Friday night so you can all read it. So that's why everything is free and flowing. Anyway, let's go. Right, Newmarket, 2:15 Saturday. This is a proper race. This is a very good race for the 2-year-old filly stakes, and I'm kind of surprised that some of these didn't run at Royal Ascot last week, but at the same time clearly plenty of these trainers have saved them for this race instead. So I'm just going to go through something. Of these, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 13 runners, of which 9 have got a 1 next to their name at some point in their career. So whatever you do in this race, in my personal opinion, you want to be keeping your stakes not too crazy. Most of them have had between 1 and 3 runs, and they're also and 9 of them of the 13 have won. And the ones that haven't got a 1, probably because they've only had 1 run. So the market, it doesn't take a genius for the sexy horses, the ones that have been cottoned onto. They're the front 3, and they're the 3 that I like. Arabian Dusk comes here for Simon and Ed Crisford Yard, having finished in behind Toifiq. Toifiq was actually quite well fancied for Ascot last week. Ran well, I think finished about 6th or 7th. But Toifiq was very lit up on the day and ran incredibly well. But on the debut, but Arabian Dusk was staying on nicely in behind, not given a hard time. And it's one of those where they know that then they can come to another race. Obviously, it wouldn't have mattered with this because there's no penalties in the race, but you could have gone to a different race and you wouldn't have had a penalty next time out. Drawn low, which if you look through the stats, it might not make a difference because it's not a huge field, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, finally 10. All 10 of the last winners were drawn 8 or lower. So that's a positive for Arabian Dusk. She remains on the shortlist, high on the shortlist. I just want to see what the market does with her. TJ was the horse that I actually was drawn to think that I knew that's what I immediately thought, this is the horse you'll be backing for this race, and that'll be at end of, because every man and his dog saw obviously the link across when Tijar beat Rashabar on her second run. And then since then has gone on to frank the form at Epsom. Rashabar obviously won the Coventry, which is supposed to be the best 6 furlong race for the Colts. The issue with taking that form literally is the fact that Tijar had the perfect draw, low draw, perfect run of the race, and Rashabar had the complete opposite. So whilst they did beat him 2 1/4 lengths and the form is strong, it's just, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. You can't just say, oh, well, this horse should be 6 to 4 because of that. The big positive for me would be the fact that Carl Burke trains the horse, because he is become brilliant at training 2-year-olds and also fillies and mares, which obviously a combination of both. And it's interesting that he's ran certain ones at Ascot but left this one behind, probably because obviously he can go here without a penalty. What I don't really understand is I had a look through, and Clifford Lee normally takes the ride, but for whatever reason he's going to Newcastle to take 3 rides on outsiders rather than coming here, and Sam James takes the ride. Doesn't look an uncomplicated ride, so don't think that'll be an issue. But it's just I didn't really understand why it would be myself. The only negative would be, obviously, I've just said 10 of 10 drawn 8 or lower. Tijar has drawn 9. At the same time, I haven't been back through all of those. There might have been quite a few races where they've had less than 8 or less runners anyway. So it might not be that big a stat. But when I watched the replays of the last few years, it did appear that if you were drawn low, it was a bonus because you could just go out and go straight. It looked like a good part of the track to be on. So that leads me to Tales of the Heart. So when trying to whittle down these few horses with such a small amount of runs, the Tales of the Heart, I was like, well, how can I whittle this down from the others? Obviously, ran at Kempton, was a very, very strange ride. Like, as in, at no point did Ross Orion really seem to go after her. She made up masses of ground, and even in the finish, she wasn't really pushing hard. There was no whip. Like, as in, it was just like, it was almost like caressed into it for a bigger day. It was like they knew what they had. And she was left with plenty to do because she was tucked in behind and all over the shop. But she won very well in the end. She stayed on well. But what's interesting is both the third and the fourth in that race, who were beaten 1 3/4 and 2 1/4 lengths, both ran behind Bedtime Story. Yeah, they were beaten 11 lengths behind Bedtime Story, but everything was beaten 10 lengths behind Bedtime Story at Royal Ascot. So it'll be interesting to just get a line to see how good the form lines are starting to add up with a horse like Bedtime Story. But Tales of the Heart, the thing that stood out for me was the fact that Ralph Beckett seems to run his best one here. He ran Lazoo here and he ran Timescale here, and he's had the winner of this twice in the last 4 years. I just thought the way that she was asked to do plenty around Kempton, which is a speed, like a push button track, but she stayed on well in the finish as well, would stand her in great stead in a much more stronger finishing test of Newmarket when she goes to the dip. So Tales of the Heart is my selection. I'm just going to check the prices while I'm doing it. 7-2 at the moment. You can get in most places 10-3 generally. So Tales of the Heart is my selection. I may have a second selection depending on how the market moves, but at the moment the only horse I've backed is Tales of the Heart. 250 Newmarket. I'm going to keep this short and simple. The horse that is interesting is Kamari, because Kamari won this last year, having not been fancied. Last year, New London was the new kid on the block, was supposed to be the next big thing and all the works, and Kamari turned him over pretty comprehensively. Kamari comes here again, having had a big break since last August, which, if I remember rightly, is very similar. So last year, 2 seconds. Where are we? Goodwood, Newbury. God, this is a horse that's been kept busy. No, last year they'd had a run. So whereas this year coming in without a run, and the fact that Dougie Costello's booked would say to me that this horse is probably likely going to need it, especially when William Buick would have had the option. So Kamari's interesting, but you'd be disappointed if it doesn't need it. I'm Eric was, I thought, well beaten behind King of Conquest last time out. I thought not had the run of the race. I just thought they both had fair run of the race. And whilst you're getting a £3 pull, I thought King of Conquest was going away further at the line. So even though he's getting the £3 back, it's hard to see that form turned round. Crystal Delight's the unknown in the race. Been winning in handicaps, slowly working their way up, rated at 105 now, so £8 below King of Conquest, but gets £3, so that puts only £5 between them. Does look an improving horse, quite clearly, in the fact that obviously has won twice since moving to Harry Eustace, taking form to a new level as well. Like, we're not talking about a small jump, like we're talking RPRs of 92 as a career best before, and now you're up to like 112. So it's a significant. The negative would be the fact that I say it's a negative. The form's not bad. I was going to say it finished 10th for 11 at Newmarket, but also finished second twice. So definitely the danger, Crystal Delight, but been doing all the work in handicap. I just saw King of Conquest 6-4. Yeah, okay, it's short enough. Yeah, it's a favourite. But I just think the form is so standout. I think the nose second behind Middle Earth. I know Middle Earth flopped last week, but I mean, what do you expect when Oisin Murphy was literally just following Ryan Moore around? Like, those two got way too hung up and let the front runners just get away from him. Had Desert Hero back behind him fifth that day. And King of Conquest gave Middle Earth a real scare going to the line. Um, that was strong form, and then followed that up, as I said, with racing against A Merrick last time out. The only thing with King of Conquest is everyone like will assume 6-4 beat A Merrick, that will be a point and shoot. But I backed King of Conquest that day, and this horse is where it's very very game. You also got to worry about the fact that it's one of those horses that need pushing off the bridle. So when he comes off the bridle, don't be surprised if it's going to take some stoking to get this horse going. Just got such a great attitude. And yeah, he won on going away. And I just think 6-4 is probably fair. Could you get big on the day? Potentially. Right, I'm going to quickly flick through the criterion. In fact, I'm not going to go through the criterion because there's not a horse that I want to back in it at the moment. I thought Noble Dynasty had the best form, having beaten English Oak. But obviously English Oak was a handicapper going for a Royal Ascot handicap. So whilst he was staying on behind and was well beaten, and also given £14 on the day, it just concerns me the fact that were they still thinking about bigger tasks ahead. I mean, that form's strong, and like Noble Dynasty looks the obvious one. Nostrum's been gelded, which would have been a big call because obviously the achievements that he'd made. But it almost seems last chance saloon because of the issues that he's had and the fact he's just been regressive. He's just not shown what he was. He looked like he was going to be very special. And then you come down to like the regular old guard. So I'm going to leave that there for now. So a quick summary of... Oh, I've got one more, sorry. Newcastle. I am going to look through, I'm looking at the races now, so I will look through a lot more, but these are just the first ones that have come to me, and I just wanted to cover the big races at the Curragh on Saturday and Sunday. So the other selection at a bigger price, currently 12-1 and drifting at the moment, is in the 340 at Newcastle over 7 furlongs, and Temps Network Handicap. And that is my old mate Baradar, and for none other than Billy Boy Lutnane. One, you love a jockey who's riding the crest of a wave. That's always a positive, especially for a horse that's going to need a good ride like he is. So you look at his figures this season: 5th of 7, 4th of 5, 7th of 9, 18th of 26. None of those really spell out to you this horse the next time winner. At the same time, though, when you look at last season, yeah, he was 3rd of 22, 6th of 22. But when he actually came before winning, he ran 19th of 29 last time out at Ascot. They did give him more time last time, so that is a little bit of a worry that they're obviously rolling him out just a week later. But I watched back the run last year at Ascot in the Buckingham Palace Stakes, and he was travelling well, he was pushed along, and then he just didn't find anything, and they just let him go home. And I just think it was a very similar run to what he did last week in the Buckingham Palace Stakes again. I just thought if you go back and watch that race, he's travelling well, you can see his little purple hat bobbing, and then when he push comes to shove, he doesn't have it, and they just let him coast home, and he was an SP of 50-1. Shocking RPR 64 and a massive underperformance, but that does put him back on a mark of 100, a mark of 100 of which he won off last year in a Class 2 handicap. So we come back over here, and obviously what's this? A Class 2 handicap. 3-year-old up to 105, and he sat here on his mark of 100. So if he runs to his level that he's shown in the past, then he could be bang there, and he looked progressive last year. I'm hoping that this has been the plan, and they've been ticking along and bringing him down and lining him up for one big one. At Newcastle, there's obviously going to be no guarantee you're going to get the clear run of the race, and as I've looked as well, I looked at last year's renewal, he's drawn in the right place, drawn in 5, low numbers works. But because he's a hold-up horse, he's still going to need luck in running. But last year, they just went so fast that they were spreading each other out, so he should get gaps and stuff. So at a big price, I'm going to go for Baradar in the 340. So I'll have a quick roundup of the Saturday. Apologies. So a roundup of Saturday. So 14.55, Jean Bruegel. It is a poor price, but there's nothing I can do about it. 15.30 Blue Stocking, and if you're a bit more reserved, I'd be doing a saver on Stay Alert. That was the 15.30, sorry. Newcastle 1540 Baradar, but I'd wait till tomorrow morning because he's 12 to 1 and drifting. So unless the market moves tonight, you may as well wait for best odds and hopefully get a bigger price tomorrow. Newmarket 1415 is, was it Fox's Tail? Oh, of course. The old odds checker block out. Sorry, Fox's Tail. Tales of the Heart 1415, and then King of Conquest 1450. Right, so then we're going to move over to Sunday. So Sunday we are at the Curragh again. Like I said, I am going to look at obviously all the other races and the bigger prices and stuff like that. This is a low-key weekend for me, not in the fact of like I'm going to have quite a few bets, but it'll be small stakes. You're after Royal Ascot before the Coral Eclipse weekend. A lot of horses are being turned out fast, so you just don't want to be diving in. A race, so onto Sunday. So if you're doing your YouTube video, Sunday starts here. 140 is the Railway Stakes, Group 2. We all associate Aidan O'Brien with the Group 2 Railway Stakes, that he's going to have a beast that he's going to unleash and is going to be the next big thing. And he tends to run a good one here as well. But what seems to be going under the radar is the fact he hasn't won it for the last 5 years, and he's only won it twice in the last 10 years. And of those two winners, one was Van Beethoven and the other one was Painted Cliffs. So often he doesn't not so much send, but leave his best ones behind because he sends them all to Royal Ascot. But he has made an active acknowledgement to people that Henry Matisse he thought a little bit too green to go to Ascot, which is why he was staying behind, and he was very, very impressive. He could get a form boost tonight, and I'm recording this at 13:15 on Friday afternoon when East Hampton runs tonight, so he could get a form boost from that. But I've had a quick flick through this, and Richard Hannon's won this race before, and he's won it in the last 10 years. He's sending one over who had beat Carados last time out impressively. So it's going to be no cakewalk. And also Arizona Blaze, who finished third to Shareholder. Arguably, Shareholder was probably the best 2-year-old colt of the week, in my opinion, and running to 100 RPR. So he sets a standard, and that's for Adrian Murray, who I believe won it last year. Yeah, Adrian Murray won it last year at Buccanero Forte, which I think, if I remember rightly, Buccanero Forte finished third. Yeah, finished third in the Coventry. So, I mean, I haven't got any prices to work with. In fact, 2 seconds, I am going to just have a quick check. And for anyone wondering, well, why is he checking on his phone rather than the thing? Because we all have to go through this silly incognito thing to get around the odds checker. There's still no prices. So it'll be interesting to see what price Arizona Blaze prices up. But you can make a case for all of these. But for me, depending on prices, it might be interesting, Arizona Blaze and Principality to take on the favourite. Again, it all depends on price. We've got absolutely nothing here. There's not even rough guides. So let's keep going to the big race of the day, which is the 405, the Epsom, the Curragh Derby. So the Irish Derby. Keeper's Heart, I find it very difficult to see a way that horse wins. The Euphrates is in here, having finished 9.5 lengths behind Caladongan. Ascot wasn't on the original shortlist for Aidan O'Brien, but they've thrown him in, so he's probably going to be another blocker to keep horses like Ambient Friendly, Matsuri, Sunway in and give Aidan O'Brien the run of the race. Euphoric was the pacemaker for City of Troy in the Epsom Derby. If you can remember rightly, Euphoric and Los Angeles went out like this. Euphoric led the way. Los Angeles came alongside. They both came inside, and it was set up nicely for Los Angeles. And then obviously they both parted ways, and City of Troy just glided straight up the middle of the two of them. So Euphoric will be in there as a pacemaker once more. Grosvenor Square finished third behind Hidden Law. And they were sent off 7 to 4 that day, and they expected big things. And it said on the quotes from Aidan O'Brien that they expect to see better. So it'd be no surprise to see him run a big race. The same would apply for Sunway. So Sunway is obviously 20 to 1, big price. But the problem is with Sunway is I just struggle. Like, there's an awful lot of love from the trainer. He says that he's got nothing he can work with it. Oisin Murphy's got a lot of confidence for it. There's an awful lot, but I just think he's got plenty to find. I know it's only on ratings, he's rated 110, and Los Angeles rated 113, and he was a Group 1 winner as a 2-year-old winning the Criterion. But you look through and like he beat Portland into third that day, and like Portland is no great shapes of a horse. He's been beaten 3 times already this season. The third time he was slightly unlucky when beaten behind Luc de Vega, but he was still beaten. So I'll be disappointed if he manages to topple the front two. Matt Zuri, this is a huge jump, and I've got absolutely no idea what he's going to do. Like, he's priced around 7-1, 8-1. If he wins, I think he's one you just take on the chin if you're backing something else in the race, because he's had 3 runs, came second on his first run. He won his next run by neck, and then he absolutely bolted up at Leicester on return. He looked so visually impressive and they just said, right, you're going to the Irish Derby. Obviously, it's very sporting connections, so it's Rosalian colours. So it's no surprise to see him throwing the dice and going, yeah, well, let's go for this. So, but here they are. They've gone for it. His RPRs, his ratings, and everything else wouldn't let him. He wouldn't look close to being on these sort of levels, but you just don't know where the ceiling lies. And it's very rare for Roger Varian to send one, but not for these connections. I'm not surprised they've opted for this race. So he's of interest, but I can't back him because his level of form you're just guessing basically. So if he wins, you just take it on the chin. And I do think it'd be disappointing if this isn't between the front two. It's not just because of the front two, obviously what they've set on this season, but Los Angeles was a Group 1 winning 2-year-old. Form with obviously Illinois, everything stands up to big runs, but he was an absolute mess at Epsom. Like, no idea what was going on at Epsom. He got himself worked up. He wasn't walking fantastically on the firm ground. It says good to soft, but it definitely wasn't good to soft on the fast ground. He was so sweated. He didn't want to go in the stalls. He was just an absolute mess, but he still ran an absolute monster of a race. So if you take all that aside and then obviously put him back into this sort of, okay, can he do it again sort of thing? If he runs like without doing all those sort of things, like if he goes down to the start, this is going to be, I think it's an 8-runner field. It's going to be a lot quieter at the Curragh. And if he dawdles down to the start nicely and goes straight in the stalls, all that crazy energy that he wasted is going to be inside him. And that's going to help him run an absolute massive race. The negative I've got for him is the fact that he was well beaten by Ambient Friendly. I know on the distance it was 3.5 lengths, 3.25 lengths, and obviously Los Angeles did plenty wrong. Probably didn't handle the track particularly well, but Los Angeles massively got the run of the race. Like, it's easy to make a case for both sides. Los Angeles tucked in behind the pacemaker, hugged the rail, couldn't have got a more straight as a die run, and went straight down the middle. And then was ridden out to finish, but at the same time, once City of Troy went past, it was like, yeah, we know we've got this in the bag. And Connections, Coolmore already said, yeah, City of Troy is the one for this. So that was their target. Los Angeles picking this up will be their target. But the concerns would lie with obviously all those issues beforehand. I also think that he probably wants more of a stamina test in the fact of soft ground. This will be a more stamina test at the Curragh rather than Epsom, and he'll be more at home probably on a flatter track. And under Ryan Moore, and he's going to get the run of the race again. That's the negative. That's the positive for him. He's going to get the run of the race. So over to Ambient Friendly. Ambient Friendly beaten 5.5 lengths by Ancient Wisdom end of last year. Was okay as a 2-year-old, nothing particularly special. But this year, when he's learnt to settle, he's come back as a complete different beast. And just putting it into context, his Derby trial, I know it was Illinois' first run. I believe it was his first run. No, it wasn't his first run. Illinois had already been beaten. So it was his second run. So you'd have been expecting bigger things from Illinois. And he got absolutely thumped by Ambient Friendly. 4.5 lengths. And it wasn't really even close on the day. He was winning easily, peeling away from him. And on the Derby itself, it's rare for me to say that I thought Rab Havlin gave him such a good ride. In the fact that he broke away smartly. He was fast to hustle up. And then once he was in the pack, that was him. He was tucked away. And he settled beautifully, and coming down the hill, if you weren't drawn to City of Troy, like as in if you didn't know that he was the favourite and stuff, you'd have thought, how far is this horse going to win by? Because he's absolutely hard on the steel, cantering away. And maybe you could argue that maybe Rab should have been a bit more proactive, like, oh, here's City of Troy. But I think he just thought, I'm going so well. And it is hard when he's going that well. And he tried to go from 0 to like 100. But obviously the give wasn't instantaneous, as in like, he saw City of Troy going past him, and obviously, but he stayed on well after that as well. And a lot of people will look at this and say they'll question his stamina, or the fact that was at Epsom and Lingfield, which are like undulating tracks, compared to a nice flat Curragh where it's going to test the stamina and it's a flatter track. But the thing is, though, he just travels so well, so strongly. It's hard to see how you can make an issue like with like of what he's done so far. The issue is, again, going back to the negative, would be Rob Havlin has got 2 Group 1s to his name, and you think about all the horses he's rode for John Gosden and some of the big runs he's had in the big races, and it's always going to be a question mark that is he going to do the right thing and make the right decision in a big race, something like this, when he's going to be up against the big boys, and they are going to make it difficult for him. So that's just my summary of everyone, and then now I'm going to try and talk you through how I believe the race is probably going to pan out. So in reality, Euphoric is going to go out and make all from stall 7, attempt to make all from stall 7. I think the Euphrates and Los Angeles will also peg out pretty swiftly in behind him. It'll end up that Los Angeles will probably be not far off in behind, getting a beautiful pace set for him. You've got Ambient Friendly and Someway both coming in from the wide, so they're going to be able to tuck in wherever they want. The only thing you don't want to see doing is that Rab Havlin tucks in to the rail with Someway coming in, and he manages to tuck himself into a rail and allow Someway, because Someway's the only horse further out than him who's not a pacemaker. So if he manages to get to the rail and then Someway tucks him in, you're like, how have you managed to get in a pocket in an 8-runner race? So what you'd like to see is Ambient Friendly to come across and sit on the outside of, say, one of the O'Brien runners, and any time a horse comes out on his outside, he makes sure that nothing boxes him in. Because for me, I think Los Angeles, without fail, from stall 3 is going to get the perfect seam, and part of me thinks you're basically, you already know. It's a bit like the situation with Emily Upjohn and Luxembourg, where I could already see the way the race was going to pay out, but still didn't want to admit it through the prices. So like Luxembourg got the run of the race, controlled it and won easily. And this could happen with Los Angeles. If Los Angeles gets the perfect stream round and Ambient Friendly somehow finds himself in a pocket, Ryan Moore's going to kick. And Ryan Moore is an awful lot stronger than Rob Havlin, both obviously with everything that goes on in a race, but also in the saddle, in the finish. If those two are going head and toe, so he's going to have to be that, say, extra 2 or 3% or 2 or 3 pounds better, as in the horse is going to have to be 2 or 3 pounds better. But we've seen he is already on what we've seen so far. Obviously, Los Angeles has got an awful lot of excuses. The fact they're sweating and all the works beforehand, and the fact that they wanted their main horse to win, so that was the priority. But I just think the way Ambient Friendly is such a strong traveller, I know it's going to be a stamina test, but if Rab Havlin can sit on the rail, on the outside of the rail, do not sit on the rail, do not get blocked in, but be behind. Say if they, I think what will happen is there'll be a pacemaker, and then they'll Noah's Ark, which will mean 2, 2, 2, and they'll all be in lines in behind. And as long as he stays with a clear run but tucked in behind, I think he could get a beautiful seam into the race. And yeah, Los Angeles might kick, but he might still be able to hold his time on the bridle. And I just think he could have plenty under the bridle still. Like you saw the way he put Illinois to bed, and Illinois won at obviously Royal Ascot last week. That was a horse that finds plenty off the bridle, and he put him to bed. It's not like he's not finding off the bridle. He was chasing City of Troy down. And whilst they admit they won't beat City of Troy, so they've gone different directions, they obviously fancy their chances. A lot will be made of the 100 grand supplementary fee, but just to put some context on that, obviously it's 100 grand to supplement him. It's only 8 runners in the race. It's 712,500 euros of prize money. So like even if he doesn't win, there's likely if he's in the first few, he's still going to get his money back anyway. So there's always that side of things. But for me, I can see why people are going to go to Los Angeles, especially if he goes down and he goes like a pony and goes in. And it's one of those where I'm just going to sit there and feel like you knew the answer, but you didn't want to accept it because of the way the race plays out. I just think Ambient Friendly is the better horse, a stronger traveller. My only concern is the fact of 1, if he got boxed in, and 2, Rab Havlin versus Ryan Moore. But I do think on what we've seen so far, he maybe is a 2 or 3 pounds better horse. So, I mean, on ratings, he's a £5 better horse. And if you add it the other way round, so if Aidan O'Brien owned Ambient Friendly, I can tell you now, Ambient Friendly would be like a 4 to 6 shot. So it's only because they've got the home contingent. I just think there's not enough runners in there to box them in continuously without sacrificing all their race. So, but at the same time, it's always big ones in the Irish Derby as well. So don't be surprised if for a horse to run a big race, something like the Euphrates or Grosvenor Square, if they drift out to like 50s and 25s, for them to run a big race and get in the places. Because Aidan O'Brien would love like a 1, 2, 3 here. But just go into a quick look at the last 3 years. And the last 3 years, the English have sent 3. The English haven't sent 3 because they didn't send it. August Rodin bolted up. Well, didn't bolt up, but won at 4 to 11. But Westover and Hurricane Lane have both won this in the last 2 out of the last 3 years. Aidan O'Brien's won it outside of that, so he's won it 3 of the 5 years. So it's likely, for me, it'd be disappointing if it's not either Los Angeles or Ambient Friendly, but I do think that Ambient Friendly's got a strong chance of turning that form around. I know the market tells you that, so it's quite a boring selection, but this is why I do the videos, to try and talk you through my decisions. And you might listen to everything that I've just said and said, I agree with what he's saying, but I'd rather take the 15-8 or 2-1 on Los Angeles. And that's why I'm here, to try and explain the way I think the race is going to play out, and just give all the content that I can. So anyway, I've talked for too long, considering I've not covered an awful lot of selections for the weekend, but it would be Ambient Friendly for me to win this race. Good luck for whoever you're betting. I will put some stuff up for this evening for the entire weekend, but this is just obviously my thoughts and processes for the whole weekend, coming from the races we've got prices for. So good luck, and we'll be back with the Coral Eclipse next weekend. If you're not following, and if you'd like to subscribe, please. If not, likes, any comments. If you've got a nap of the weekend, throw it on there. I read all the comments, reply to them, like them, so fire away. Thank you and goodbye.